Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you, Kiana, for doing this. Gives me an opportunity to really share, the work that I do and how I contribute to supporting our community here along the Fourth Plane corridor, and also even beyond our boundaries. Again, my name is Wil Fuentes, program manager. I have been with the organization a little bit over a year. About a week ago or so was my 1 year anniversary. It's been quite a journey. It's been exciting, and I have to admit it's been the best job I've ever had because I get to work with community. Most of my background, actually my entire background has always been in the private sector, mostly in finance, banking operations, and so it's exciting to do this kind of work. But to describe a little bit of what I do, I work in three different areas here at Fourth Plane Forward: financial education, as you mentioned earlier, small business outreach, and housing development. So I'll go a little bit into detail with each of these areas. In terms of financial education, so I have a lot of background in banking operations, personal finance, so I was able to bring a lot of those skills and create a pilot program for Fourth Plane Forward for financial education. And I partnered up with Happel Community Credit Union late last year in 2023, and we started kind of planning and putting together this massive program to kind of experiment and see how we can build out a more of a long-term program at Fourth Plane Forward to support our community members with financial education, personal finance, etc. And what we ended up with at the very beginning of the year was a 13-week program that included a number of workshops in four different areas: credit, personal credit, checking and savings, budgeting, and account services. And in partnership with Happel, we deliver this program to a number of community members, most of them from the Recovery Cafe down the street, and then a few members here that reside at the Fourth Plane Commons. We started with 7. 2 of them dropped out after a couple of weeks, but that's okay. They had personal things going on. But the other 5 were able to participate throughout the entire program. In addition to 12 weeks of workshops, we spent a week with them reviewing their personal finances and coming up with a budget. And to help them learn where the opportunities to develop positive behaviors along personal finance, right? Our primary goal, of course, was to identify how we can best support people and these community members in developing these behaviors with their personal finance, learning how to budget, learning how to manage their credit, what it means, what it is, understanding money concepts, and then how they can utilize banking services to their advantage. In addition to the workshops, we also provided some grants. And so about halfway through the program, we opened a certificate of deposit at Happel Community Credit Union, and we deposited $100 in that savings account, and with the objective that if they kept this through the first 6 months of this commitment, that we would deposit another 100. So we're almost coming up to that 6-month period, and so far everybody's been able to keep their account open, which is really, really exciting, and we're looking forward to making another deposit. And we'll continue to do that over the course of the 18-month period that we've committed to ensuring that they stay on track. In addition to the certificate of deposit, we also opened secured credit cards for them. So all of our participants were struggling with credit. Their credit scores were under 500 for each and every one of them. They couldn't open, some of them had debt, they couldn't open credit cards with any other financial institution. And so what we did is we provided $300 that becomes a deposit. It becomes a collateral for the financial institution, and they're able to open a credit card in the participant's name, and they can utilize it to start building their credit. So far, every one of our participants has maintained their account open and active and in good standing. So again, that's really, really exciting because it's helping these folks really develop those positive behaviors and managing their credit services. So anyways, that's one aspect of the financial education program. The other piece that I do is small business outreach, and that is a small component of the work that I do here at Fourth Plane Forward. And basically, I build relationships with small businesses along the Fourth Plane corridor. I work with them in trying to understand what some of the needs are, some of the challenges that they have as they navigate through owning and operating a business, and connect them with resources as necessary. I've been able to develop a number of relationships with community-based organizations, financial institutions. So if they need help with loans, then I can connect them with the proper resources. I connect them with Miriam here at Fourth Plane Forward, who provides workshops for small business owners through the Business Connect program. And I also provide technical support. So if they need help with creating a job description for a position that they want to open, or if they need help with translating information, connecting with city services, I provide that level of support as well. In addition to that, over the course of this past year, we have helped about 9 businesses with promotional videos where we highlight their businesses, we showcase what they do, and then we share that on our social media through other CBOs or community-based organizations that are willing to support us as well. And so that's been very successful. And it has helped bring some new business to some of these business owners. So that's kind of really, really exciting, and that's what we aim to do. And then finally, the last piece is housing development. So what Paul and I, our executive director, are doing is we are building out the framework for what housing will look like here at Fourth Plane Forward. Over the last few months, we're working on a couple small projects. Won't get too much into detail for a number of reasons, but it is an exciting endeavor for us because it will allow us to, once we have a project and we start working on it, to transition into a community development corporation. And so that's exciting, and we can start building affordable housing that will meet the needs of our community members in Fourth Plane, here along the Fourth Plane corridor, but also across Clark County. Yeah, well, you did mention, and I mentioned it as well, my experience in the private sector. And even in the private sector, we care about people. Being in a leadership role for 15 years in banking operations and in higher education, I was able to learn how to develop effective relationships with not just my peers or folks who I reported to, but more importantly, to the people that reported to me. They were my responsibility. Their success was my responsibility. And so I learned, how to communicate with different communication styles. I learned how to coach. Utilizing different approaches. Everybody learns differently, and so learning those skills in the private sector has been incredibly valuable in utilizing them in this environment. One of the challenges of the nonprofit world is the lack of resources, sometimes the lack of funding, and so it takes some time to develop the skills necessary to do the job. But because I brought those with me from the private sector, where I learned where there were plenty of resources, there was plenty of money to send me even across the country for 2 days of training, right? I was able to bring that with me, and so I'm very lucky in that respect. But I also make sure that I prioritize the well-being of my teams and my peers, right? Again, going back to coaching, that was one of my favorite things about work, is because I got to work with people, teach them how to do the job, follow up, go back and find a different way to teach them if it wasn't sticking, and seeing how people felt really good about learning or accomplishing specific goals, and feeling empowered, right? And that's the exact same thing that happens in the community that we work in, right? People sometimes don't know what they don't know. They don't know what resources to access or what resources are even available, whether it's through other community-based organizations, through Fourth Plane Forward, or city resources. A lot of folks don't understand. And that's particularly true with people in our community. A lot of them don't speak English or very limited English, right? And a lot of them are recent immigrants who, although they may own a business, they have minimal skills in managing those businesses that they might have learned back home, right? But it's a different beast here in the United States, right? There's a lot of permits, sometimes a lot of barriers. And so my job when I work particularly with small businesses is to help them overcome some of those barriers, right? And figure out how to access those resources. And I'll give you a really quick example. I've been working a lot with Cuatro Caminos. We all know Cuatro Caminos. And then just recently, I was able to partner up Cuatro Caminos, the Mexican restaurant down the street, with Access Architecture. They were going to put this big event, or they put this big event early August. And it was a large event, and they got together, they did the catering. And while the owner, Isabel, was working at this catering event, she met a builder out of Portland who's building 2 apartment complexes in Portland. And one of those apartment complexes will have a food court. And because he fell in love with her food, he said, "Hey, I have a space for you. Come and check it out. And if you're interested, I want you to open, a second location. Well, actually a third location, because they have a food court up the street. A third location here in Portland." So that right there, these connections, the networking, and supporting Isabel through connecting her with Access Architecture, helping her also with the purchase of the food car, is allowing her to expand beyond this area, right? And this is a person that just recently immigrated to the United States, right? So she hasn't been here too long. She's owned the business for 4 years, but she's doing a lot to ensure that she's generating well-being for her family and for her community. And so that's one example of of the support that we provide here. We're helping other folks. I'm going to help a Western style clothing apparel store with a website that we will pay for, an e-commerce website. And in addition to paying for the e-commerce website, he will get trained on how to utilize it so that he could sell his products outside of the local footprint. Right, and so that'll help him expand beyond, the Fourth Plain Corridor or Vancouver or Clark County, and start selling and shipping his products. Which, if you ever get a chance to go to the store, it smells amazing because it's like leather, genuine leather. And so, anyways, but those are examples of way that we support people. Right, we don't have the capacity oftentimes to provide, maybe seed money, right? But we have the time. I have some of the knowledge, some of the skills set to be able to support these community members and help them build that wealth as well, not just for them, but also for their family. Being able to reach everyone, as I mentioned earlier, particularly here along the corridor, 40, and I would probably say now that even 45% of the population in the 5 neighborhoods that we serve right now are made up of people of color, right? Specifically Hispanic or Latino, Latinx. We also have a large Russian Ukrainian community, a small Vietnamese community, a large Chugis community as well. And so I think one of the challenges for me particularly, and I think even for the organization, is being able to reach everybody in their language, right? So that becomes a barrier. And another, I think, barrier is resources, right? Even when we know who can do the job, the nonprofit world, folks are stretched thin. Right, they're doing a lot of work, and so it's really, really hard to get to folks as quickly as we'd love to. Right, coming from the private sector, where oftentimes there's infinite resources, we can move a lot quicker. Right, if there's a decision that needs to be made, the resources are there. Right, all I need is my boss to sign off. Right, I can hire 4 people if I have that. That's not the case here, and so in the nonprofit world, whether it's us or even other community-based organizations, I think that. That becomes a challenge as well. Reaching people, as I mentioned, in their language becomes a challenge. I do, I work in 3 different areas. And so it's hard for me to dedicate a lot of my time to one specific area, because each of these areas is demanding, time and energy. And so that can also be a challenge for me personally. But these are challenges that we figure out how to overcome, right? And I think what happens though is if we can invest in 1 or 2 community members, they will feel confident and empowered to support each other as well. going back to Isabel, using her as an example, we know that she, talks to other small business owners, right? And she provides support as well, right? Any way that she can, right? And she's an intelligent woman, and and has learned how to has learned how to navigate, and still learning how to navigate the business world here in this environment. But she's able to provide her expertise as well. And I think that that's important, right? So. We need to work together. I think that's imperative, right? Because we don't each have the solutions to be able to solve the problems or the challenges that the community is experiencing, right? We all have certain levels of expertise. As I mentioned earlier, I don't have experience in small business, right? I've never owned a small business, but I have specific skill sets that will allow me to figure things out, right? So I can only provide so much support to our community members, and so I have to find other folks that can do that, and so we have to work together. And I think that a good way to start doing it is kind of building strong relationships with other community partners, and building that trust. I think that's essential. And for those community member or community-based organizations that, for example, might not understand the cultural nuances of interacting and engaging with these community members, then I feel like I have a certain level of responsibility to be able to provide that type of information, right? And support them, right? And be there. So it's about working together, building trust, and just strong relationships with one another, so that when there's a problem that we need to solve, whether or not I have the skill set or this organization has a skill set, we can figure out how to solve that problem. Yeah, what kind of support do we need from them? I mean, the easiest response is like we want them to be engaged, but there's so much more to that, right? We can't just expect people to be engaged. I think that's particularly true with people that hail from other countries, right? Where there's sometimes a mistrust in governmental agencies. There's a mistrust in their own community members, right? For a number of reasons, right? Folks are coming from war-torn countries, or countries where there's a lot of poverty, or countries where there is political instability. Venezuela, a really good example, right? For the last decade, there has been a lot of political instability, and we are receiving a lot of those folks from Venezuela here in the Portland metropolitan area, right? And so there's already a level of mistrust. And so although we want our community members to be as engaged as possible, I think it really falls on us as leaders in the community, as providers, to build strong relationships and trust with them first. And so that takes time, right? That doesn't happen overnight. And so, as I mentioned earlier, with the small business component, a big part of my job is just really building relationships, right? So every other week, at a minimum, if not more, I'll spend half my day just hopping from small business to small business, just stopping and saying hi and talking to folks, right? I want them to remember who I am, and so that over time they begin to trust me, right? And I share with them some of the work that we're doing, provide examples of where we've supported certain small businesses, so they can start seeing, that they can trust us, right? And they have to feel comfortable with us in order to be able to open up and receive the type of support that we need, and then they can feel engaged with us, right? They can start engaging with us. As I mentioned, some of the few folks that I've worked a lot over the last few months are getting to that, or are already at that point, right? Where they will come to us when they need something. We don't have to go to them, or they will participate in some of the workshops that we organize, and they will trust us when we refer them to other community-based organizations that might be able to provide with whatever support that they need. I think the one that's much more attainable between now and the end of the year is securing funding for our financial education program. So as I mentioned, in that partnership with Apple, we developed a pilot program. We learned a lot. And I think one of the most important things that we learned is that 14 weeks was a very, very long time. Although participants were actively engaged, the feedback that we got is it was just a little too long. And so I was able to put together so far a more of a 6-week program that we can deliver several cohorts over the course of the year, right? And so what my immediate goal, and hopefully by the end of the year, is securing funding to continue to deliver this program, not just in English, but also in Spanish, in Chukis, in Ukrainian Russian, and also delivering it to maybe high school students, right? So it is a very ambitious goal because it does require a lot of money. But I am working currently with 3 different financial institutions and another community-based organization here in Vancouver that will hopefully bring in some of the funding so that at a minimum we can deliver a couple of cohorts early next year. So that's the short-term goal. I think that's the most attainable one that we can accomplish between now and the end of the year. As far as the other goals are concerned, we as an organization, I would like to transfer the small business outreach part of my job to a full-time coordinator, right? But as with any nonprofit, we need funding. We need to secure funding for that as well. I don't know that we can accomplish that between now and the end of the year, so I'll continue to do their work in that respect. But we would love a small business coordinator so that they can dedicate 40 hours of their time providing higher level technical support and really building out the small business outreach program at Fourth Plane Forward. And then as far as the housing is concerned, we got a couple of now one project. We were working on a project with a development partner outside of Portland. That project wasn't approved by the city of Vancouver. This is common knowledge, or at least it should be. But and so that unfortunately, we can't move in that direction. But we are working on another project. But it all comes down to funding. As long as we can access the funding, then we have the resources to be able to move forward. So, and that's more of a long-term goal over the next year and a half, 2 years.